Hello, hello. I thought we would have another manga chat. If you haven't watched the first two iterations, this is basically a ongoing but non-scheduled ad hoc whenever I feel like it's series where I just talk about some manga I have been reading and enjoying lately. So this could be old stuff that I'm just reading for the first time. It could be stuff that's just getting scanlated now but is actually old, or it could be the latest and greatest chapters of an ongoing series, and everything in between. Uh, we're going to start by talking about Beat and Motion. This is a series I kind of started reading on a whim because it was part of the Viz Shonen Jump app. So I guess it's a Jump Plus title or something like that. And the premise sounded nice, and I don't know, it's fine. I wasn't really blown away by anything. The premise is quite cliche, although pleasant. Basically, this kid, he wants to be an animator. He's always been inspired by this indie musician. They have a fateful encounter and start working together with him animating her music videos. And then they start succeeding and kind of rising the ranks of popularity and acclaim and winning awards and blah, blah, blah. There's a few little twists, things you learn about the characters. But it all kind of seemed to be, going by the typical steps of the book. And I was fine with that, I have no problem spending a few minutes a week reading a series like that. There is a lot of very pleasant moments, and I like any story that's about kind of artistic fulfillment and stuff. I will say this, though, and this is kind of spoilers, so if that already sounds good enough, you can skip to the next series. But what really makes me recommend it is what happened in the last few chapters, which is actually quite rare for a series like this, which is that essentially both of them had kind of major breakthroughs in their career, and the series, as a result, has really changed its mode that it works in and operates in. They took a point of climax and kind of emotional resolution that typically either signals the end of the series or is somehow otherwise kind of glossed over and made less significant than it ought to be, and really signaled and kind of vowed, no, this is the direction the series really is going. So I'll be even more explicit, and again, if that intrigues you, then maybe just skip ahead and read it. But the main characters actually get together romantically and are a couple now. And typically in this sort of series, that doesn't happen until like the very last chapter where suddenly they're getting married. Instead, we had a really, really nice confession scene. I have kind of a mental index of my favorite confession scenes, and this one certainly ranks up there, I think. A really lovely moment where they've been out celebrating their latest success, and they're just having a quiet moment alone as they walk back from the convenience store. And she can tell that he's been trying to muster up the courage to confess. And she knows that if she took the step, that it would be reciprocated and everything would go well. But that she recognizes that this is important for him, that he wants to muster up the courage to say it. And she wants to encourage that instead of kind of taking that opportunity away from him. So she says, just go ahead and say it. I'm going to say yes. And it's a really, really lovely moment. I thought that was so touching and so kind of fresh and exciting. Just say it. I'm going to say yes. Oh, so lovely. And so he does. And she says yes, and now they're dating. And accompanying that, there's major life changes that now he has been funded to be a full-time animator. And he lives in a dorm with his animating assistants. And it's like, yeah, there's a whole new kind of set of problems navigating that lifestyle. She wants to spend a lot of time with him, but he right now is empowered to animate like he's never animated before. It really feels like they've headed into the second stage of the series. And I think just kind of the ambition of that, and just this feeling of, we're going to show these characters' lives, truly. Not just an episode in their life, not just a certain type of lifestyle that they have for a while, Not just, these critical key events, but it's going to be this ongoing saga. That really impressed me. That made me, very excited for the future of this series. So, yeah, good one. Still, not like, oh, this is the best rom-com I've ever read or anything like that. It's pretty basic in a lot of ways. But yeah, I'm oh, I'm a little congested is what I am. But yeah, I'm happy with this one. Okay, next we'll talk about We Shall Now Begin Ethics. This is a very unique, very interesting series that was scanlated for quite some time. And then there was kind of like a major breaking point in the series where the class that he was teaching, the school year ended, and it was like, okay, none of those kids are in his class anymore. And I thought that was kind of the end, because at the same time the scanlation stopped. And then since then, the scanlation has kind of picked up intermittently, just sort of ad hoc for a few chapters, just enough to remind you, oh yeah, this series is still going. But lately, I guess there's been renewed interest and passion, and the chapters have been coming out fairly frequently. So I'm kind of hyped up about it again. I want to spread the word on it. Like I said, a very unique series. The art style is very un-manga-esque. It's kind of gritty almost. The characters are not realistic. They're still very kind of exaggerated, sometimes in somewhat grotesque ways. But they have like very highlighted imperfections, I use the word obviously in quotes because thinking of the body as a perfect thing that has imperfections applied to it is extremely unhealthy and gross. But the characters, yeah, they're kind of like caricatures of their personalities. And basically every kid in this damn ethics class is messed up. And the formula of the series is that he introduces a topic in ethics, which is, a real actual lesson from the subject, talking about Nietzsche or Socrates or Kant or Kierkegaard, all the big names, and doing actually, I think, a really nice job of summarizing their main arguments or beliefs in just a few pages. And then we learn about the kid's personal life, the subject of the chapter. Almost every chapter focuses on a new kid. They're usually going, through some kind of hellish problem in their personal life, or they suffer from some deep insecurity or complex or hang up. And then, of course, the lesson that they were learning in ethics applies somehow. And it's not some really trite thing where they're like, Eureka, the answer was in ethics. But rather it just kind of provides a theming. The characters kind of start mulling over these things. There's no real easy answer, obviously, to these big questions, these big personal questions. But at some point, they usually have an encounter with our handsome ethics teacher lead, who they all kind of have preconceived notions about, given kind of his demeanor and that he's very aloof, he's very cool. Often they find him attractive. But he is certainly a very flawed character. They realize in these moments where they have kind of a personal encounter that he too struggles with a lot. He too is trying to grapple with these things through his study and his teaching of ethics. And when they often, explain their problems to him, they open up, and he kind of goes like, whew, well, that's hard. And again, there's no easy answer, but he kind of reiterates the ethical themes of the chapter and kind of just leaves them on that note of contemplation. I really like that. I really like that sort of storytelling. It's very down to earth. It's very undramatized, Again, there's not some magical moment of inspiration, but rather just the slow planting of seeds that you want to remain optimistic will eventually bring them to some feeling of contentment. What is often very dramatic, though, is the problems these kids are having. When I say these kids are in some fucked up situations, I'm really not even giving you half the story. It deals with like very dark topics like schoolgirl prostitution, or the prevalence of plastic surgery in kind of pop culture in Japan, and how kids feel pressured to get plastic surgery, abusive households, bullying, dealing with the aftermath of friends' suicides, addiction, drug abuse. And it's like, at once it feels a little unbelievable that all of these things are happening in the same classroom, or now in the second year of the classroom with a fresh set of kids. But at the same time, it's like, no, these are real problems. These are very real things that are happening in Japan. And it's like, I don't think any individual case is actually sensationalized. I think each of them could be pulled from a newspaper headline. And so it kind of leaves you in this uncomfortable state where you have to reckon with the fact that, yeah, these are what a lot of real kids are going through, not just in Japan, but the world over. And it really is this tough that there isn't just kind of a light switch situation. So yeah, it's not for everybody. I think a lot of people will find the art style off-putting, or just kind of the dark, unpleasant tones of it off-putting. But it's very educational, very enlightening. It's been a great way for me to re-encounter a lot of these philosophical subjects that I probably hadn't thought too much about since way back in undergrad. And I'm always just kind of curious, not only how will they summarize and kind of focalize on the main points of a given philosopher, but then how will they construct this kind of unpleasant dramatic scenario that has thematic links. And in doing so, I think the series has a ton of potential to run for a very long time. It's already up to 8 volumes, but, there's tomes and tomes full of philosophical ideas that they could draw upon. Yeah, I don't know. It's great. It's great. I think it does a great job, too, in having truly, morally ambiguous characters, where they're not just, woobies, these kids, you certainly feel bad for them. You're certainly not blaming them for everything, but they don't make them, ooh-woo small beans that they just kind of suffer endlessly. They really emphasize what agency the kids have and what choices they're making, and they make them unpleasant at times, and rude and callous and abrasive, rudely dismissing suggestions that the teacher makes, or engaging in self-destructive behaviors. And again, it's not like I'm victim blaming here. Obviously, it's the kids are still the victims of these horrible situations. But I think it makes the series way more interesting when there is an element of kind of searching for the virtues of the kid in your quest to empathize. As evidence, if you go into the Manga Deck's comments of any given chapter of this, you're going to see more than a few comments that are this stupid kid, what an asshole. They deserve everything they've got coming to them. Why the hell would you do that? You know it's wrong. You know it's bad for you, blah, blah, blah. And it's Jesus, settle down. But it's, it's not like the series doesn't give them a reason to say that, You know what I'm saying? They're crazy. The people blaming the kids are crazy, to be sure. But they're drawing from the text. They're not making things up. This is an accurate summary as well of what the kids are doing. So yeah, it just kind of creates a truly ambiguous situation where you could have differing viewpoints on who's to blame, which I just think is very, very interesting and not something you could typically see in manga. Alright, yeah, good stuff. This is Nadeshiko Doremisora. Of course, solfege. Do, re, mi, so, fa, ra, ti, do, do. Ooh. That was a half tone off. I gotta freaking grind. Yeah, lovely series. The first 3 chapters got scanlated years and years ago, and I read them because at the time, and still to some extent now, I read any cute girls doing cute things series. Moe slice of life is still the best genre. And this was a unique one. The cute thing they were doing was playing traditional Japanese instruments and traditional Japanese music and arrangements. Here you see her pictured with the shakuhachi. They're also playing the koto. They're also playing the big horizontal string plucking one, whose name I forget, or is that the koto? The shakuhachi I'm quite familiar with. I had a choir director who was like a certified shakuhachi master, one of very, very few outside of Japan. And he would play the shakuhachi at concerts as sort of an interlude between our singing pieces, which I always thought was pretty cool. So yeah, I thought this was great. You know, it's cute girls having fun. Uh, Maybe they have little crushes on each other. Oh, hee hee, cute. And you get to learn about Japanese music. You know, traditional Japanese music. So I started reading it. I really, really enjoyed it. I found it very moving at times. I was especially enamored with the way they depict music itself as these kind of flowing obi-esque ribbons, decorated with floral motifs and patterns, somewhat geometric, somewhat natural, free flowing but still structured. I thought it was just a perfect symbolic representation of the sound of the music. That it wasn't trying to make you hear anything per se, but instead it was providing a visual that had the same emotional impact as the music would have were you able to see it. I just thought that was so brilliant. It's something I really haven't seen done in any other manga, any other comic, anything, to depict music in this sort of way. Even when you do see stuff like that, it's much more like hallucinatory. Oh, wow, this track is so tranquil. It's making me feel like I'm in a sprawling green, lush plains, and a small, soft breeze is rustling. Sure, sure, you know, that's very evocative and useful too. But here, they skip that sort of metaphorical thinking. They skip any such kind of losing yourself and immersing yourself or whatever. Instead, it just very much is showing the characters performing and playing with these gorgeous ribbons of sound enveloping the panels, and you see the characters' reaction to them, not in, you know, they're warped to some other setting, but they're just sort of observing these sort of ribbons of sound. And to me, that's like the most effective way I've ever seen of kind of putting you in the same spot as the character. Really, really, really good stuff. Anyways, yeah, Scanlation finally has picked up on this again. There's been like 5 or 6 chapters that have come out in the last few months. I was so happy to see it back. I had kind of totally lost hope that I would ever get to read more of the series in English. It's been great, you know, just typical stuff. They're getting better at their instruments. They're having a study camp. They meet a famous-ish person who plays, and they're enamored, but they learn something, and blah blah blah. All very by the book. Everything that you'd want to see. But just the subject matter is so unique, and the artistic depiction is so unique, and the characters are great. I don't know. I'm loving it. I'm loving it. At the end of Volume 2, which just got scanlated, there was an author's note in the back where they were responding to all the positive feedback from Volume 1. And they mentioned specifically the number of people that wrote in and said how impressed they were with how sound was depicted. And they were basically like, yeah, I don't know. I didn't think at the time I was doing something so amazing or unique. I was just thinking really hard of how I could depict sound, and I didn't want to just do onomatopoeia. Twang, twang, twang. Wouldn't have been that enchanting for, you know, a genre that's mostly like twang, twang, twang. You know? And I was like, yeah, that's such a brilliant thing to come up with, born of that necessity. And I was happy to see that other people recognized it for being so cool. So yeah, good stuff. Check this one out. Middle Manager Tonegawa. So this is a spin-off of the famous Fukumoto series Akagi, I've talked before about these Fukumoto spin-offs with the One Day Outing Foreman. This is very similar in kind of tone and style, this kind of ongoing slice of life sitcom. But whereas Foreman is sort of about the joys of being unemployed in a sense, in that pretty much every chapter is just about him popping up in the surface world and just doing whatever the hell he wants. Tonegawa is very much about being employed. It's all office comedy. It's all about the silliness of working at a gigantic corporation. The weird hierarchy where his boss, Chairman Hyodo, is just this inhuman, deranged monster with totally ludicrous demands, and the people underneath him are just a gaggle of anonymous, interchangeable black suits. But the way that it kind of emerges from that setup, and all of the black suits are really developed as actual unique individual characters, and they have their own adventures, and they have their own all their own ongoing storylines and relationships and everything like that. It really just kind of feels like a sitcom as it goes through the seasons. As it goes through the series and its many seasons, it develops each of these characters. It fleshes it out into a really sustainable world of comedy where there's all these kind of running hallmark jokes for each character that you can return to. Ebitani and his famous Ebi roles. Simon and his weird otaku interests, but underneath he's actually a very charming, normal person. Yamazaki's upward career interests, Gondo's older man jokes, and the fact, his crises of middle age. And then in the middle of it all, our titular Tonegawa, who's kind of like a business superman, the platonic ideal of an executive, seeing all of his exploits into golf, into novel writing, into travel, and his attempts to have leisure, and his overwhelming workaholism. It's fantastic. At the start, I thought, oh, this is going to be mostly about kind of behind the scenes of Kaiji. Kaiji is always battling against the evil corporation Tei. Now we get a look inside Tei. We get a look in how they set up all of these insane gambles. That is kind of a persistent theme and a plot element they return to, but it ended up being so much more. A truly hilarious comedy, but then at times, again, surprisingly heartwarming, surprisingly sentimental and serious and emotional, in a way that really resonated with me. So this had been adapted into an anime. The anime is fantastic. Madhouse does it. It's just hilariously over the top. There's this awesome narrator voice. There's a great compilation of all the time they speak English, because in Japanese business it's considered like very cool, and it shows you're like a hip with it manager to say things like synergize. So the anime was hilarious, kind of a little cult hit. And then scanlation for the chapters that take place after the anime were very kind of consistent. And then the boss of all bosses, Chinchiro Addict, after conquering One Day Outing Foreman, doing hundreds of chapters in the span of a year, turned his attention on Tonegawa and finished off the whole series. It ran for 10 volumes, and he took it from where Scanlations had last ended and brought it all the way to the final chapter. The finale was excellent. I felt like the whole last volume had such a wonderful air of celebration and looking back and bringing back all of these characters and plot elements from earlier chapters in just a really fun but cathartic way. And then the actual final chapter itself, I don't know, it's too much of a spoiler, but they pulled off a maneuver that I have never seen in any other work of fiction. Just this sort of transcendental force that you won't really appreciate unless you watched Kaiji years and years and years ago when it came out, and felt a certain way about that. Again, I don't want to spoil too much. If you truly felt a certain way about the climax of the first arc of Kaiji, the first part, that is, it's like the third or fourth arc, and then reading this like 15 years later, the way your two emotions will butt up against each other is like nothing else in this world. I was getting choked up. I was getting teary-eyed when I realized where it was going and what was going to happen. A truly, truly masterful move that I think can only exist in this bizarre, multi-genre, multi-mode manga universe where the same characters are so vastly recontextualized in different series in this bizarre, non-canonical but still canonically congruent mix of anachronisms and silliness and sometimes supernatural things. Magnificent. This is why Fukumoto is my favorite mangaka. And it's not even like Fukumoto wrote this or made the art or anything. It's just because it's all part of this Fukumoto verse that he not only established but had the foresight to let flourish in this way. It's series like this that make Fukumoto, you know, such a one of one in the manga world. So yeah, really great stuff, and thank you so much to Chinchiro Addict for all of your very, very hard work over this last year, bringing us all of these Fukumoto spin-offs. It feels like it's been longer than a year. Maybe it has been longer than a year. When was the first time I remember reading Chinchiro Addict scans? At any rate, we had a really nice community going in the comments of these chapters. You can go back and read them. Lovely little conversations, you know, when a series is about real life and themes of real life. I think it's only natural that a certain type of person will want to share what in their own life is reminded to them of the series, what experiences they're having, how it made them feel. All sorts of very personal and intimate moments came through in these series. We had long discussions about cooking. We had long discussions about other hobbies. People would say, I'm inspired to make the recipe that was shown off in this chapter of Foreman. And then, you know, in the next chapter, they'd post a picture of what they made. It was really lovely, and it really harkened back to an earlier era of the internet, of forum culture, of this really kind of slow moving, every few days we'd have a little discussion and then meet up again with the next chapter. It was really, really great, and I really thank again Chinchiro Addicts for providing the environment for that. Not only by obviously scanlating and releasing the chapters, but by making comments at the start of each thread about what they thought of the chapter and what kind of research they did while translating and what they learned and little jokes and references that were maybe hard to translate and how they tackled those. I found those really, really fascinating and really educational, and it provided such a great spark for future discussion and future conversation. I say all this in this video out into the void, who knows who will watch it, in the hopes that maybe Chinchiro Addict is watching somehow, because I have no other way of contacting this dude. I don't know what happened. We were in a server together where sometimes we'd chat about manga and stuff, but they're not in the server anymore. And they're not posting on MangaDex anymore, and I looked at their MangaDex form account and it says they're banned. So I don't know what the hell happened. I'm hoping it's just that Chinchiro Addicts had done this unbelievable Sisyphusian task of scanlating huge manga all by themselves and reached the end of Tonegawa and said, that's a good stopping point. I'm done. Not only am I done scanlation, but I just want to make a clean break from this whole aspect of my life and do other stuff. So I'm banning my own account, which I don't even know if is possible, and quitting out on this manga Discord. If that's the case, all the power to you. I wish you had said goodbye, but I get it. I just hope it's nothing else. I don't know what else it could be. I really don't know. It's very strange and mysterious and a little upsetting, honestly, because the good guy, you know? I had really nice conversations that we had and everyone else had and everything. Yeah, weird situation. It kind of unsettled me once I realized that that's what had happened. But that's the nature of the internet, right? You make these connections, and for a while you feel very close and you talk all the time, and then sometimes it just ends. and there's no real resolution because it's just the internet. You're not gonna run into them at the grocery store. It ends, but then sometimes it picks back up. I had an internet friend when I was like 13. We talked all the time, had no contact for many, many, many years. And then I just randomly saw their profile on another site that I use. I was like, is this the same person? And then we started talking again, and we've been talking ever since. You just never know. And it's a weird, bittersweet world. This was a weird, bittersweet ending. More sweet than bitter for sure. But we just keep moving forward. In the end, we're still in the middle of it. We may think this has ended, that has ended, but we're still in the middle of it. As long as we're alive and we're doing stuff every day, we're still right in the middle of it. Okay, let's keep going. Another Fukumoto series. Nikaido Hell Golf is the latest brand new series from Fukumoto, taking place in a distinct universe from Kaiji and Akagi and all of those. It's fantastic. It is quickly climbing up the ranks of my favorite Fukumoto series. If you are a Fukumoto fan and you haven't read this one yet, then I encourage you to close this video right now and go read it. Don't learn anything more. For those of you more on the fence, I'll explain a little bit. I thought this was going to be about golf, which I think is a reasonable assumption. And Fukumoto before has had some golf action, you know. In aforementioned Tonegawa, there's some golf chapters, and Foreman, there's a golf chapter. There's even a little arc in Gambling Emperor Zero that's all about golf and gets really into the nitty-gritty of what it means to be a good golfer, and has a very shocking and exciting way that Zero overcomes his golf deficiencies and comes up with a clever trick. All great stuff. I was like, oh, okay, so this is going to be the series that's just all about golf. We're going to show hole by hole, just like we go hand by hand in Mahjong. We're going to break down the psychological challenges of approaching each hole. We're going to look at every single stroke and shot and assess what went well, what went wrong. We're going to delve into the psyches of his rival golfers. It's going to be golf. Not so much. This is much more like Kurosawa, I think. This is a long-reaching, expansive story about a man's life, about the titular Nikaido, who has aspirations of being a pro golfer, but has been met with failure at every single turn. This is one of the most brutally sad series I have ever read. Not just Fukumoto series, not just manga even. In terms of fiction in general, there have been scenes in this one that have been devastating like almost nothing else. I don't want to spoil too much. I don't want to get into specifics and details. But man. Oh, just thinking about... You know what? Fuck it. Okay. If that sounds good, go read it. But for you Nikaido heads that know what I'm talking about, the scene where he goes golfing again after working at Kasumi's dad's restaurant for like a year, and he plays really well. I knew it. I could see it all coming. The second he comes back and he's all happy and excited with how well he shot, I was like, it's fucking over. And then just having to watch that slow motion train wreck, seeing him go out and practice his chips in the sandbox, and knowing he's about to throw it all away again just to try to grab the golden ticket of golf once more, knowing that he was going to fail, knowing that it was just a fluke, knowing that even though he was within a stroke of PBing or whatever the hell it was, that has nothing to say about his long-term golfing potential, knowing that in the end, he is just not that good a golfer. When you think about his aspirations, it's always to be famous. It's always about the riches that being a pro golfer would bring. It's always about, then I can marry Kasumi because I've made something of myself. It's never about being good at golf. He never imagines himself like hitting birdies. He never imagines his short game getting tightened up. He's a vapid person. He dreams only of the material things, not the immaterial skill that he needs to get them. You knew it was doomed from the start. He's like a Shakespearean tragic hero. You can see the flaw coming a mile away, and all you feel is dread as the pieces start falling off. Man, oh, it's so good. It is so good. And then, after despair, suicide attempts, rock bottom, a lower bottom than rock bottom, throwing away every good connection he had in his life. Kasumi's married. Her dad probably hates him. The golf club that he used to work at has had enough of his shit. After all of that, the craziest moment of all, when he realizes a power, gains a power to rewind time by about 10 seconds whenever he chooses. This is the development that's happened in the last few chapters that's made me so excited. It's so weird. Introducing a supernatural element 4 volumes in, after teasing that something weird was going on. You thought it was just his psyche. You thought he was just kind of going insane. No. There is truly some magic at play. He, in fact, does have supernatural control over time, which he indeed realizes could make him an unstoppable golfer if he can just redo any shot as many times as he likes. But don't forget, this is Hell Golf. As powerful as this power may seem, somehow, someway, it's going to bite him in the ass. And I have a theory how. And this is maybe mega spoilers, because I think this is such a good idea that I feel quite confident that it might be what comes to pass. I saw people speculating, oh, he's going to pay for it, like, every time he rewinds time, it's actually shortening his lifespan a bit or something. Okay, maybe. Or I thought for a while this was going to be literally Hell Golf. I thought we were going to see him actually just commit suicide and die, and then it would be about him golfing in hell. It should be kind of like Washizu's journey to hell in Akagi. Thought that could be cool. So I also thought, oh, well, maybe this is actually going to lead into some hell type thing where every time he rewinds time, he's actually adding to a sentence that he has to serve in hell. And then we'll literally again get Hell Golf. But no. Here's my theory now. Nikaido is going to use this power and succeed. He's going to use it to cheat his way through. Basically, it is cheating, and this has been a theme of the series, is the moral depravity of cheating in golf, and Nikaido caught somebody cheating and blah, blah, blah. So yeah, he's going to succumb and use his insane gift to cheat, and make it all the way through the protest until the final protest. Not Free Palestine, but protest. He's going to make it all the way to the end, and he'll be in a situation where he has to hit some unbelievably great shot, like a hole-in-one. Maybe not as extreme as a hole-in-one, but he's got to make like an eagle and get it in the cup from the fairway, or something crazy, right? Something really, really unbelievably hard. If he makes that shot, he passes the protest. If he doesn't, it's all for naught. He's right back where he started next year. And so, he starts to loop time over and over and over and over again, trying to make this shot, trying slightly different things each time. It's kind of like Groundhog Day, where he just tries everything. Sometimes out of frustration, he's just whacking it. Other times, he's really trying to collect his thoughts, but he only has 10 seconds to do it, basically, because he has to keep looping back to that same starting point. Praying for some miracle, praying for some insight, and then he spends like hundreds of years subjectively in his brain, fully conscious, repeating this 10 seconds over and over again, and he can't make the shot. I think that's what's going to happen. I think that's the true Hell Golf. I think that might be like the climax and finale of the series. I don't know. I don't know if Fukumoto is planning on running this for a long time. His series vary in length very dramatically, you know. He's got a few that are 3 or 4 volumes. He's got Kaiji that's been running since the 80s. So I don't know. I don't know. I think if it's going to end soon, that'll be how it ends. We'll get another volume or two of him using the power successfully, getting through the pro exam, agonizing maybe over cheating, not using it sometimes, whatever. All of that stuff, and then this will be the climactic moment, and it will just end on an ambiguous note of him constantly looping time, and we are left to wonder, does he ever, ever, ever make the shot? Or is this just his existence infinitely? Hell golf. Hell golf. Alright, I think this is the last one we got, which is good because I need to do some other stuff. Hunter x Hunter. So, this has been returning. This has returned now to Weekly Shonen Jump. There was a chapter in last Sunday's issue. It's going to run for at least like 20 chapters, which is pretty exciting. It hadn't been seen in the magazine for 2 years. I know some people were worried it might never come back, but Togashi, you know, at his own rhythm, at his own pace, is grinding out these chapters. So, as someone who is devoted to reading the entirety of Weekly Shonen Jump every week, it's what I've taken on myself, I had to get caught up on Hunter x Hunter so I could start reading it week by week as well. I talked about this in a previous manga chat, but Hunter x Hunter I had first read in a period of my life where my manga reading was very weird and sporadic, where I would just kind of read random chapters of various series and try to see what was going on, or read the latest chapter that came out for something that I'd heard of to see what the deal is. I had no conception that I might enjoy the story more if I read it from the start. So Hunter x Hunter was one of those. I don't really remember what all I actually read back as a kid. I would have been like 13, 14. But rereading it, I realized that I certainly had read the entire Hunter exam arc. I remembered all of that. And I had read big chunks of the York New arc, but there was also a lot of stuff in there I didn't remember. And I can't remember reading any of Greed Island, so maybe I just skipped that. And then I can remember reading the start of Chimera Ant, which I think was running when I was doing all of this. Those were like the current chapters. So I think I probably just read some current chapters that were around the start of Chimera Ant. I didn't double check the times or whatever, the dates, to make sure this makes sense. But this is just sort of my subjective recall. And you know what? None of that matters. The point is I've read all of it now. I'm all the way up to date. And I'll tell you what I think about it. So, Hunter exam arc, absolutely love it. Probably my favorite arc of the series. Just so focused, relatively few elements, but just enough elements that it has a really engaging sense of complexity. Great characters being established right out of the gate, so much personality, such great setups, you know, the badge hunting arc, the reverse tournament. Really, really engaging stuff, very creative, great fights, great settings. Overall, just a fantastic shonen arc. That's the sort of stuff that I read shonen for. Next major arc, there's some stuff in between. I don't know, you know, the rescuing Kira from his family, good stuff, and York New overall, very fun arc. The Phantom Troop are a great set of characters, you know. I just love the culture they were able to establish of York New. You know, the power of setting your series in a fantasy world, you know, having this blend of real world things like New York and the real auction culture of Sotheby's, but parodying it and exaggerating it and adding in all sorts of new elements and worlds and, you know, the really rich, alive world building. Yeah, a very fun arc. Definitely some seeds of over complexity. Overall, I just kind of feel like Togashi has great instincts on coming up with ideas, you know, trying to navigate the frou-frou world of high society that at the same time is overrun with organized crime, revenge plot playing out, but also you're trying to win a specific thing at auction, trying to raise money for that. All of that stuff is great. But then he has like a weird brainworm takeover where he's like, and I know what would be so much fun. Multiple chapters about how to identify fake antiques. Or many chapters negotiating a hostage crisis between the Phantom Troop and the Hunters. A hostage crisis for like an exchange of information. Just things that feel so inconsequential, getting so much focus. I think is just really quintessentially Hunter x Hunter at its best and worst. Similarly, the whole Battle Tower arc, which was really fun and had great fights and great world building, and was a great way to kind of bring in different characters from different factions and have a reason for them to meet up and battle. Great stuff. Great premise. You know, simple, right off the bat. You love it. All of the rules and opportunities to learn Nen and stuff, very well executed. But then we have to have this whole extremely belabored explanation of how the floor masters work at the top and all the rules about challenging them to battle and when will battles get scheduled and oh well Gon scheduled a battle here so now Kira is gonna schedule a battle blah 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 blah, and then it like literally couldn't have mattered less because very soon after that they go, we won enough money, we're bored, and they just leave. And none of that stuff really came into effect at all. It's just so weird, man. Just the way he writes is so weird. And I don't hate it. It's not like I'm truly complaining. I think the weirdness has like a unique charm to it. Or Greed Island, another fantastic example, alright? You know what's all the rage when this was being written? MMOs and card games. Let's have a card game inside an MMO. The kids go into a video game, our lovable little protagonists. What fun are they going to have? What adventures? They're probably going to be roaming around this huge fantasy world with all sorts of crazy beasts, collecting cards and learning their effects, and becoming card battle masters. Not really. There's some of that. But mostly it's like they get there and the game is like already over. All of the cards have been collected and dissected. There's already super established camps that have control over like almost the entire supply of cards within the game. And most of the plot is about really complicated negotiations between them to figure out, okay, well, you have 17 of this card. I have 18 of that card that counters it, so I currently have an advantage. So you need to set up like a card mafia that extorts everybody buying new cards so that we can regain control of. And it's just like, what? Why is this what it's about? This is something that if I read about it happening in real life, you know, people cornering the supply of different cards in a card game so that they can control the meta, I'd be like, oh, that's kind of interesting. But to make that up in your fantasy world where you can do anything and be like, yeah, really, it kind of devolves into like an economics problem is so weird. And what are the other major aspects of that arc? Big training arc, which has nothing to do at all with the card game, and big final showdown battle, which is like sports fest battle, where they have to do different athletic events against the NPCs, which is a lot of fun. Both of them are a lot of fun. I liked those arcs, but it's like neither of these things have anything to do with the card game. So you might go, okay, yeah, they don't care about the card game, but no, they do care about the card game. Togashi is obsessed with the card game. He spends the time to show you every single card in the game, its rarity, what it does. He makes it clear all of the different mechanics by which you can get cards. He sets up all these rules for how the cards can be used and their limitations. He cares so much about the card game, but he also doesn't make it important at all. It's just crazy, man. It's just crazy. It's like so weird. And it's like, I can see why this is such a beloved series. Because it's like a special interest series where if that resonates with you, if the card game resonates with you, it doesn't matter that it's developed in the weirdest possible way. It doesn't matter that you never actually see like a proper card battle, or you never really see how 90% of these cards are attained, or all of the adventures that have been set up. That doesn't matter. It just sparks the imagination. And it's enough that he just gives you all of this information and leaves you to imagine all the different scenarios that these cards could be used in. It's like I think yeah, it's like just feeding off that very kind of quirky mindset by which some people engage with fiction, where they don't see it as a story as much as just a collection of settings and mechanics that they themselves love to delve in and speculate about. That to me is the way that Togashi excels. That's the reason the series is so popular and has such shooters, I think. Okay, so that's Greed Island. After that, by the way, another bizarre thing about this series is the arcs just transition into one another, like boom, 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 boom. The whole York New situation finishes. They win Greed Island, the video game. They are right in there in Greed Island. They beat Greed Island. They're trying to track down Gon's dad. Instead, they end up with Kite. Kite's like, yeah, we're investigating weird creatures. Guess what? It's 100 chapters of battle against weird creatures. Right off the bat, right there. There's no transitional period at all. Boom, 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 those 3 arcs. After that, there's much more transitional periods and stuff. So yeah, Chimera Ant. I love this arc. Again, I think this to me was the strongest arc since the Hunter exam. I think this is what plays to his strengths, where again, the premise is very simple, very straightforward. Sounds like a great shonen arc. This invasive mutant species is like eating humans and inheriting some aspects of human personality to create this super race of highly dangerous, highly powerful creatures that all have different animal themes. Fantastic. They take over a country. You have to infiltrate the palace and fight them off. Fantastic. And then there's the signature Togashi weirdness, where major aspects of this arc are about the king of the Chimera Ants trying to learn how to play a board game. But it's great. I loved that stuff. That was like really compelling. I thought that was really interesting and thematic and provocative. But here's the thing. It was never just 50 consecutive chapters of him playing the board game. They mixed it up with fights, with awesome power scaling stuff. You got to see the chairman unleash his full power. You got to see Kyora's grandpa unleash his full power. You got to see awesome fight scenes of all sorts of characters like stepping up. Amazing. Another Togashi weirdness, of course, is that before this, there's a whole big training arc where Gon and Kyura have to prove their worthiness to go on the Chimera hunting expedition. Total derailment. That still happens, but it's an acceptable level of derailment. It really kind of feels like, and maybe this is what's happening on the editorial level, there's a part of Togashi that just understands better than almost anyone what makes a good adventure shonen, and that part of him is grappling in a death match with another part of him that just wants to be like, what if the guy had a power that it made you deplete your nen on an interest-based system, but it only worked if he was in a certain radius, but the debt would still accumulate, and I have so many ideas about this power, and I need like 3 or 4 chapters to explain how it works, and we need to focus this whole arc on how that power works. And the other Togashi is going, why? Why do we need that? Why do we care? Can't we please just have some fight scenes? Can't we please, like, have them go to an exotic island and fight a big animal? They're strangling each other. But yeah, overall, I really liked Chimera Ant. After that, I enjoyed the whole stuff with the Zodiacs, setting up the election to see the new chairman of the Hunter Association. That was a lot of fun. I liked that Gon's dad got back in the mix. The whole storyline with Kira's sibling that can grant wishes, I thought was creepy and compelling and cool. A lot of cool stuff was going on, and it felt like they were really world building up this big cast of exciting characters. Fun anti-climaxes, subverting the reader's expectations in a way that doesn't involve pages and pages and pages of explaining mechanics that we don't care about, but it's just like funny and surprising. Ging just showing up in the auction or the voting chamber thing, and Gon going, "Oh, there's my dad." That was great. That was so funny. And then you get some nice heartwarming stuff with them. They didn't deprive you of all that. Uh, yeah. So I thought, oh, okay, the series is really cooking now. It's getting into a good mode. And then the cherry on top, you learn about this whole gigantic forbidden continent that surrounds the world. It's full of unfathomably powerful beasts and ancient curses. That's where the chimera ants came from, and they're not even considered a big deal over there. What a world of adventure. It's like Toriko's gourmet world. Just the whole series opening up to a new level of danger and excitement and adventure and intrigue. Ah, we're gonna set out on a big boat. All these major characters, or we think they're major characters, are gonna be there. The Zodiacs and Leo and Kurapika and the Phantom Troop. They're all gonna get to this island and then have this gigantic adventure where alliances are forged and betrayed. I can't wait. I was reading about all of this. I was like 40 chapters behind. You know, I thought by the time I catch up, they're gonna be out there on that continent, battling and adventuring and discovering. That's why people are so excited about it coming back. It must be in the middle of like the most fantastic arc ever. Okay, so the kingdom that's launching this voyage to the Forbidden Continent is having an internal power struggle where the princes of the kingdom are vying to be the successor to the throne. Oh, okay, okay. So that's another thing that's going to play out on the continent. Cool, cool. Okay, that's kind of interesting. Another dimension by which alliances will weave and falter. Huh, so how many princes are there? You know, three is a good number. You know, maybe you have kind of the evil one, and then a weird one, and then kind of the good one that you want to see succeed. Three princes, yeah, they'll duke it out in this new kingdom. Oh, there's more. Oh, I don't know. Maybe like seven is a good number. You know, seven is often the size of such parties. We can come up with seven good personalities. Oh, there's 14. 14 princes are vying for power. At most, we can expect 0 to 1 of these to actually be major characters going forward after this whole succession arc. Oh, but that's not all. Each prince has a team of bodyguards and hunters deployed to help them. They also have their own internal armies, and several of them are affiliated with organized crime families that have all also put themselves on the ship. So any given prince probably has like potentially up to 10 characters associated with them that are like their underlings. Okay. And the way these princes are going to battle is they've all been cursed to manifest a beast made out of Nen. And each of these beasts has a unique, very complicated power. Okay? And then some of their followers, their legion, also have Nen and have very complicated powers that need to be explained. But some of them don't have Nen and are learning what Nen is. And so there has to be, I think at this point, like 15 chapters devoted to Kurapika explaining what Nen is, or not explaining, or trying to use that power to leverage things, and they have to do the glass with the leaf on it. Everybody has to do this. Some of them already know Nen. And then the princes as well, they already have their Nen beasts, but they also have to manifest the power of their own individual Nen, which is a different power. Such thrilling powers such as you can take over the body of a small creature and spy using it. Or you can crawl through a tunnel and pop up somewhere else. or a coin comes out of the Nen Beast's mouth, and we don't know what it means. And all of this needs to be explained through talking. A real example is a bodyguard of another prince is trying to understand Kurapika's motives and is essentially trying to figure out why somebody died in front of one room or instead of another. I think it's becoming clear that I'm not the biggest fan of this arc. I just do not understand the point of it. Well, at least we're having a lot of fun on the new Forbidden Continent, right? And there's all sorts of crazy animals and settings and terrain and weather, and it's just a world of adventure. No. We're on the ship. We still haven't gotten off the ship. We're not going to get off the ship until 2027. It's Berserk all over again. And what's the ship like? Well, it's basically just a city. There really isn't any point to it being on a ship. It just looks like a city. It's like, I was talking to somebody about it, somebody who's a fan of the series, who's enjoying this arc, and they were like, well, I'm kind of just treating it like a bunch of little vignettes, little side stories about each of these characters. And it's not supposed to matter in the grand scheme of things, you know, we're just seeing little slices of how each character is dealing with the succession battle. It's like I can kind of appreciate that, I kind of get that, and there was similar side stories in other previous arcs. But again, those other arcs had something definitive and major going on, whereas here, really the only plot point I could expect to care about is that Kurapika wants to recover the eyes of his family, and that one of the princes has some of the eyes. But we're so far removed from that. He hasn't mentioned that dude's name once. He hasn't tried to assassinate him once. He is just following the rules of engagement of the succession battle, expecting it to go on for like the 20 weeks or whatever it takes to sail there. Well, guess what? That's like 100 weeks for us. I don't care. And it's like, yeah, there's no kind of major thread for me to care about. There's no reason for me to think that any consequence of this will matter when we haven't seen like 3/4 of our main characters in years. Moreover, other times when they had these sorts of vignettes and side stories, they were punctuated with like big battles and action and straightforward things that aren't just fucking talking, that are fun and exciting to read and aren't just literally a page where every single panel has a paragraph of text and all of the text is speculating on whether or not someone will pretend to not know how to use Nen when they go take the Nen exam. Like, I cannot make myself care. I'm trying really hard to care, but I just don't care. The other thing, too, is that normally these vignettes are fairly self-contained. You see the character, they go through a little bit of an arc, and then maybe they die or something, or they reach contentment, or their story ends, whatever, and then you're like, okay, well, that was it for them. The plot got a little simpler because that thread was resolved. Nothing has been resolved in this arc. From the very start, our very first plot line was like, somebody is trying to kill the prince that Kurapika is protecting. They're still trying to kill that damn prince. There's a whole side plot about the Phantom Troop trying to track down Hisoka. They haven't tracked down Hisoka. You know, I can think of like maybe 3 things that were resolved. There was like the guy going around killing people on the lower decks that got killed by the Phantom Troop. Okay. But that guy was part of a whole mafia army being led by this character on the cover, who I guess is important, who has a very complicated power, of course. So that hasn't been resolved yet, just that one guy was killed. Like, he's set up, like, I think probably 40 concurrent plot lines, and there is no indication that any of them will get resolved anytime soon. And there's also no indication that any of them will be important at all. I think there's like 3 important plot lines. Getting the eyes back from the prince, the Phantom Troop versus Hisoka, and the stuff with the chairman's son beyond. And it's like those 3 barely ever come up. and the rest of the time is on the other 37 plot lines that I will never ever be able to be convinced will actually matter and just are tedious as hell to read through. So yeah, not a fan of this arc. I just want to get to the damn continent. Just fucking get there already. Where is Gon? Where is Kirita? Where are the characters I like? Where's the fun? Where's the excitement? Where is adventure? Where is fighting? Ugh. Anyways, I'm sorry to any... I'm not trying to, like, piss on people's parades. You know, I'm excited that it's back. I'm excited that things are gonna happen. I had this horrible feeling of, like, oh my god, this arc is still going on. Nothing is going to happen between now and when I get caught up. And then it didn't. And it's still not really happening. Granted, the last chapter, there was a few pretty explosive revelations. I'll give it that. But only, like, in the 18 layers deep situation that we've gotten ourselves in. I swear to God, the next 3 chapters are just going to be talking about the revelation itself and the ramifications of it. Who knows? Who doesn't? Who would do what if they found out? What can I use to leverage this? Can I tell this? The blah blah blah. I can't. I don't care. I don't care. I don't care.